Good evening and welcome to the school board, Scarborough School Board Workshop. The date is Thursday, April 30th, 2026. Ray, can we call the attendance, please?
Ms. Jacobs is
Absent.
Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Ms. Lindstrom?
Here.
Ms. Maurer?
Here.
Mr. Rockenstein is in the
He's
next door
excused, yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Ms. Tarpinian?
Here.
Ms. Tarpini Huff?
Here.
Ms. Raskina?
Here.
And Ms. Claret?
Here.
Good evening.
Just running. All right, would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So now I stop my share.
I apologize, my back is to y'all, but hopefully it works. It works okay. Okay, so today we are here. Our agenda item 2.0 is new business. 2.1 is understanding educational technology, what it is and how Scarborough uses it. So a couple of things first, just to kind of ground us in what we're doing here, is some background. The policy committee had just started a discussion around ed tech and the use of Chromebooks and taking them home at really at the Wentworth levels where we had started the conversation. And should kids be taking their Chromebooks home or should they not? And so as we started the discussion at policy, it became very clear very quickly that it really needed to be a much larger conversation with the full board and really considering the idea of developing a vision and a direction for the use of educational technology for the full district. So this tonight is our very first step into this. So we just are just getting started. We're going to hear from Katie, and I think Jen is online. Yeah, and so we're going to hear from them about what it looks like, what current use looks like in Scarborough. And then from there, at the end of this workshop, what I hope to take away is what the next step, what the board would like to see in the way of next steps. There was a reference list for this workshop that was shared with the board and with the public. So just to kind of ground you in what that is, taking one step backward, when we did the cell phone policy, when we updated that, we did hear a similar message from a lot of parents, and that was that we need help. We need help navigating technology. We need help with our kids. And so from that, we decided to hold a community forum, which is going to be next week, next Wednesday. And we have 3 panelists with the help of some of our Scarborough residents have helped us to seat that panel. Matt Pines and Kate Danielson and Dr. Fanberg, who is our district doctor, will join us to share information and answer questions about tech use at home. And so while we were planning for the forum, we knew this workshop was coming. And so we did ask for recommended resources from the panel members. And so that list of resources that is referenced in the agenda is a list that the 3 panelists gave us, the recommendations for resources that they gave us, along with community members that send us in references. Up until the date that this agenda became live and posted, those are the references we had received. So, and that was to help ground the board in what we're doing here. So, one more thing before I turn it over to Kate, just as we kind of, I know Cressy had asked this at our last, when we were talking about this workshop, what the difference is between educational technology, what it means. And so just to give some definitions, educational technology is using digital tools, so that's either hardware or software, to to assist with teaching and learning. So Chromebooks, YouTube, Kahoot, the games, the Google Classroom, all of those things are considered educational technology. Technology education is curriculum focused on teaching students about technology. So that would be your like when we did keyboarding classes back
Digital
in the day.
wellness.
Digital wellness, digital citizenship, coding, engineering, all of those things are technology education. So 2 very different things, also very different from, and I don't mean this to be glib, but we use ed tech in Scarborough to talk about human beings. This is not talking about human beings. This is talking about devices. All right. Okay, so I think we're grounded and we're ready for you, Katie.
All right.
Okay, we'll kind of-
And I welcome Jen to join in whenever she has something to say. She is on Zoom. I know that I'm just trying to keep the talking window minimized so that we can see more of the slideshow.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, Shannon, beginning with that definition of what educational technology is. If we move. We will look at that ourselves from the perspective of educators first and what technology integration looks like in Scarborough. We'll talk about the technology approval process and our use of student data privacy agreements, and then get into some of the specifics about what does use look like in Scarborough from the perspective of our educators who we survey. So similar to your definition, educational technology is the combined use of hardware, software, and educational theory to facilitate learning and improve performance in education. What educational technology does not include, that is very much a conversation for families and parents, is the use of personal devices and social media. Those are two different topics. Technology is integrated across 3 key areas of education: curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And I'll talk about what that looks like specifically. And then the purposes and practices of these uses take into account recommendations from the education field and the opportunity to increase learning in purposeful ways beyond low tech and no tech. And I think one of the things that I'll really try to clarify for tonight is how we choose what we do. And I know General Day will talk about this as well. How we choose what we use and why the quality of the application matters more than the screen time use, though we do care about that as well. So Scarborough's practices in curriculum, instruction, and assessment really focus on ensuring that
everybody, but you guys are on mute.
We're on mute.
No.
Oh, look at the owl isn't lit up.
Okay, is that better, Jen?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. Can you turn up?
I'm up as high as I can go.
Excuse us, make sure she can be heard by everyone.
Can you hear us now?
Yep.
We don't hear you that well, but
Oh, let me turn myself up.
There's another.
Is there,
Yeah, it's all the same.
I think it's the same.
There we go.
Yep.
That better?
Yeah, it's a lot better. Sorry, you guys were on mute. I didn't know if you. Once I saw you started, I was like, I don't know if they know they're on mute.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, that's good. So that whole first part we missed.
So the first thing we ensure is that when we're using educational technology, that the technology integration aligns to standards and learning goals in the classroom. Is one of the first questions we ask on our tech approval process. And we really look at what is the need for the integration of the technology and how does that fit specifically with the curriculum. In particular, educational technology may be part of the delivery model for curriculums. In instruction, we really focus on fostering active learning over passive consumption because we know that the quality of the app and the engagement with the app is really important to the successful outcomes of its use. We look for apps that promote collaboration between teacher and student, student and student, student and family, and student and the world. And we look for apps that allow for differentiation of the learning process and the products that students can produce to honor the varied needs of our students across the district. We also want to ensure that when we're using digital tools to take assessments, that really increases the availability of data use for students to make for teachers to make instructional decisions, and provides value in that data collection as that model. In all areas, we really make sure that there's equitable accesses to resources because of the ed tech integration, that it is safe, that teaching digital citizenship in order to use the tool effectively is done and is supported through professional development and technical support. So to get into specific uses, EdTech is integrated as the vehicle for accessing curriculum material for many of our curriculums. we really value in our district print materials as well, but we also know that digital access can provide accessibility for our students, both in school and out of school hours. Some of the curricular materials provide more than what could be gained from just a static textbook. And so, for example, in our elementary science curriculum, like Mystery Science, the videos that promote an exploration of the experiments is a really wonderful opportunity for students to see and engage with both the videos accompanying the curriculum and the actual activities that they engage in. Curriculum also is enriched through websites, educator-created delivery models like the presentations and interactive lessons that they provide through things like Pear Deck, access to digital databases through our libraries like PebbleGo and Encyclopedia Britannica. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s like I did, you remember going into the library and pulling open the card catalog and praying that the topic was in there for you to research. But now there's a rich variety of tools available through databases that provide students a much broader scope for research. And then digital curriculums like Mystery Science or supplementary materials like BrainPop can provide great access to supplementing the direct instruction that teachers provide. Instruction includes a host of tools and apps that allow our district to do things beyond just paper and pencil. Students can engage in interactive activities that provide teachers with formative assessment data. So for example, I can deliver my slides through Pear Deck and then collect as I go polls and quizzes to see how my students are doing in the moment with the material I am presenting, and I see that on my side of the screen while they see the delivery of the content on the other side. They can create products through Canva that include digital elements and multiple features that promote accessibility, including book creators, another great one for this, that promote text-to-speech, speech-to-text, video recording, and sharing with families. So there's lots of examples of that in instruction. And then in assessment, we utilize some online assessments that provide a host of information to inform instruction. Our main through year is online, as well as the iReady and PSATs. There are some other local assessments like the COGAT for students who are eligible for GATE services. In the classroom, it might include Google Forms for quizzes and self-reflections that allow the large-scale collection of data that teachers can synthesize very quickly in order to be focused on student delivery of instruction rather than analyzing assessment data, because that collection and synthesis is very quick. And then other formative tools like the one I mentioned, Pear Deck. And I think underscoring all of this, I can't say enough how important the accessibility and inclusion is and part of the access through these tools. Underlying all of this is the opportunity to remove barriers and allow for greater participation in education for all students by ensuring that digital content can be used by all students who may have visual, hearing, cognitive, or motor impairments. And there's a wide variety of tools that can be used in the classroom for all students to help that access. And then there are also educational technology tools that are really specific to a student's IEPs or 504 accommodations to allow them to access their curriculums at similar levels or as their peers. And that's really, really important. I think the other thing to underscore there is that the access and inclusion that educational technology can provide students also allows increased student autonomy, and that autonomy is really important through specialized hardware and software. And so I'd like to ensure that our conversation includes that as we talk about all of the aspects, because that for our student population is really important. In the district, we also focus on professional development ongoing to ensure that the integrated use of educational technology is robust, not just on the tools, but on the uses. So these are from the last 2 March in-services, and you'll see that while specific tools are provided for support, there are also other large important conversations there like media literacy or academic dishonesty in AI, or the use of universal design for learning through the use of Google Read and Write. And those support all educators in making more informed decisions about the ways in which they integrate technology. So I'm going to hand it over to Jen Day in a minute, but the technology approval process is a cornerstone of the work we do here in Scarborough. We employ a process through which educators can request additional use of technology. And this allows us to ensure that we're protecting student data privacy through our work with the education collective called TAC and the Student Data Privacy Consortium, the SDPC, which we are members of both. It ensures that new tech is compatible with existing technology, ensures that resources are not duplicated. One of the things that we really work hard on is not having every app available when one app can be learned well and used well by everyone. So, for example, Book Creator allows students to create book-based products in that app. If somebody were to request an app that also provided the same product, we would be looking for a really specific need to approve that because we already have a product in place. So we're not approving apps just because they meet other criteria. We also want to ensure that, we also want to assess the potential long-term technical and maintenance support. There's sometimes financial implications of these purchases for subscriptions or hardware that need to be taken into account, as well as the short and long-term professional development needs as new educators come on board and have access to the specific technology of Scarborough. And we are always looking at the costs.
So just to take us back, sort of in the Wayback Machine to about
Jen,
2017.
can you talk a little louder?
Yeah. I don't know if I could get right into the microphone here. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Not really.
I know that I'm good on my end because I have a Jabra speaker. So it's got to be on your end where there's technical difficulties.
You're right.
You know what?
Yeah, it's not coming.
It's coming out of the computer, not the owl.
It's not coming out of the owl.
Let's see.
Yeah. And hit. Oh, okay. And yep, you have it. Can I just?
Yep.
Okay, can you try again?
Yeah, can you hear me? No?
Mute yourself, please.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, now can you hear me?
It's a little bit better.
No? Oh, now I can't hear you guys.
Well, because it's muted on the screen.
Yeah, I'm just in my computers. Didn't want to talk about.
Oh, there we go. Fun.
How's that?
Is that better?
It's a little bit better.
A little bit, okay. I don't think I can go up any further than that.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to take everybody back about 10 years where we started to get concerned about the number of requests for technical applications and hardware and software that were kind of coming through. And back then, we were working through the Maine Educational Tech Directors Association, and a group of us got together and we approached the Student Data Privacy Consortium, as Katie mentioned. So the SDPC was set up, a group out of Massachusetts, and kind of their purpose was to start monitoring, all of these vendors and vendor agreements, student data privacy agreements, to ensure that student data privacy was really protected. So we joined the consortium. We kind of got together and we went through the state of Maine, which actually ended up purchasing the membership to the SDPC. And with that, we sort of partnered with Drummond Woodsum, and they created an Exhibit E. So the Exhibit E is really the data privacy agreement that we're trying to have everybody use kind of nationwide. That sort of evolved over time because as different states created different privacy laws, the Exhibit E for each state kind of had to change. So we still, as Katie mentioned, that got handed off sort of to tech, and tech works with the SDPC to create these data privacy agreements. We're sort of in a group with basically New England because our laws are similar. So the first thing that we do when we get a tech request come across our desk is go out to the SDPC and tech and see if there is a signed DPA. If there's not an assigned DPA, it's an automatic no. No, you can't use that application, and it's pretty much blocked. If they do have a signed DPA, and maybe it's with a different school district, it might be in Maine, it might be in New England, then we move forward with a pretty rigorous review. So Katie kind of went through when something would come across her desk in terms of is it a tech request or not. But just to give you the sort of broad strokes here, any kind of software application, any kind of online application, any tool, any kind of technology tool, whether it be hardware or software, even the plugins for Google, we have the teachers, the staff, or administrators fill out tech request forms for. These tech request forms will kind of give you an overview of what those look like and how they move through the system in a minute. But it's basically any kind of request that you have for technology. And then we can actually go to the next slide, Katie, because I'm going to go through all of those in a lot of detail. So the tech request form, as I mentioned, it's an online form. All of the staff has access to it. They can fill it out online, and once they hit submit, it actually automatically moves through a workflow that goes to their principal for approval, and then it will, if it's marked as special service, it will go to Chris or Nicole, then it will go to Katie, and it will go to me. So everybody, there's a lot of different parties that put eyes on this. The tech request form really starts out with asking, what is their curriculum need. So basically the who, the staff, are you trying to serve staff? Are you serving students? Is it full staff and students? Is it only special services? Is it only one student? Is it a group? Is it a whole team of people? And then the what in terms of what is it for? Is it, for inquiry? Is it for research? Is it for assessments? Is it for assistive technology? There's a lot of different reasons why they may need this particular application. We do then ask them what data is going to be collected if they know. So if they tell us that they're student rostering, then we sort of do a deep dive into, is it the student's name, email address, grade level, etc. Of course, how it's funded. I think Katie mentioned that it's a building base. Is it free? Is it going to be funded through the curriculum department, etc.? And then how is it going to be implemented? So in terms of implementation, we take a look at, is it software application that's pushed out? Is it something that, if it's a Google add-on, then, folks can go out and get it themselves. Is it going to be training? Who's monitoring it? Is it single sign-on, etc.? We kind of go through that in the beginning. The staff person where the requester is filling all of that out. That then you can see on here, this is a sample of the technology request template form that we have loaded. And this form is actually about 3 pages long. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what it looks like to the user. And then we go through and Katie will look at it for curriculum. Is it pertinent to the curriculum? Is it needed for curriculum? What other needs might there be? Again, we go through rostering requirements. I do take a look at whether or not there are third-party links. Usually they will disclose that in their terms of service, their privacy policies, and then I'll usually try to go out. If they do say that there's third-party links, I'll go out and try to see what those are. And again, the ongoing monitoring and maintenance. So if this is approved, somebody has to be responsible for going in and kind of, every once in a while checking on the application. And we do try to go out on a fairly regular cycle, although it's tough with the way things are evolving so quickly. We do try to go out and just see if there have been changes made to the privacy policies in terms of service. And go to the next slide. When I do a data privacy review, so Katie and I both look at it independent of each other. Katie will take a look at it first. If she approves it, it comes to me. And I do go in and I look at the data privacy agreements and I look at the terms of service. And yes, we are those weirdos that read every word of every page of, if it's 15 or 16 pages long, we read it. We take a look again and see if the vendor has signed a data privacy agreement. Some of the things that I look at are, is it hosted in the US? They must host their data in the US for us to work with them. Do they use their data to train a large language model, so for AI? If they do, then some of the follow-up questions that I have for them, and we won't approve it until we get answers, are is your LLM closed? If it has any external access, so people can feed data into it, or it feeds data out, that's an automatic no for us. And are they COPA and FERPA compliant? And I do look at SIPA as well. And then when I go into the terms of service, some of the things that I look at are mostly cybersecurity related. So how do they secure their data? Who has access to the data? What kind of authentication do they have to have for that? How do you dispose of the data once we terminate the agreement or the company is sold or acquired? How do you dispose of the data? Do we have access to actually contact the vendor and ask them to dispose of the data? And then what are the warranties of service, liabilities, and indemnification? So who's on the hook for what, basically? If there is a cybersecurity breach, what's our recourse as a customer, and what are their requirements as the vendor?
So to move back to, you're gonna have to get on that again. I went way back. I think we're good. I don't know why I'm getting.
Is Jen muted? Try that again.
Yeah, we're just gonna get some weird feedback. We'll just have to live with that, I guess.
Can you get your speakers on?
Oh, that's, okay, thank you. So one of the things we wanted to be sure is to represent accurately what educators have to say about the use of technology in Scarborough. I can get up here and speak to you about this, but I'm not the person in the classroom delivering instruction to our students every day. And so I wanted to be sure that there was an opportunity for our educators to be represented. So I asked them to complete a survey. We had 89 participants across K-12, and those participants represented all phase levels and all of the instructional departments. While this isn't, our whole teaching body, I think it's a good first step at taking a look at what might be happening in our classrooms directly from our teachers.
What is the teacher count? So it's 89 out of how many?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Yeah.
520.
520 around at the middle school. It's about 500.
500. Okay.
A little less than that for teachers that deliver instruction.
Oh, sorry, the question is what phase level did you teach? K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12?
What is the rationale?
I'm sorry?
The number of participants at each phase level. We took the survey.
It's a little bit under 20%.
But I wanted you to hear from educators directly, right? Because while that is a lower number, 89 participants and 89 educators is better than one curriculum director who thinks they know. So I wanted to represent them in this data. We compiled a bunch of questions in the hopes of sharing with you their thoughts on educational technology. So what best describes your current practice of using technology in instruction? You'll see that the majority of the educators in this survey said that they use educational technology primarily for whole group presentation. So the delivery of content to the students, but they sometimes facilitate students in the use of a variety of informational related tools. We asked about the different types of educational technology and what was most utilized for curriculum and instruction and what was least utilized. And I tried to break that a little bit apart by grade level, but in some ways, K5 and 6-12 really did have similar numbers in the most utilized and least utilized related tools. So 77% of K5 educators use presentation software like Google Slides daily to put something up on the board for their students to see, while 74% of our secondary educators indicated that one of their top educational technology integrations was the use of internet resources. And 70% of our secondary educators said that they've used content-specific applications to help deliver their curriculum. And they did that either daily or weekly. Least utilized, many of our educators never access or create podcasts. They rarely utilize audio or visual production tools. And 79% of our K5 educators say they never or infrequently utilize classroom response systems like Kahoot or Blookit. And I think if you were to enter a classroom, you would see that the primary way in which they elicit responses in their classroom is through classroom discussion and through whole group interactions face-to-face, often on the rug or right in front of each other. So we asked, how often do your students in your classroom use technology to, for example, access class information online, things like assignments, calendars, information. One of the tools that's really heavily supported is either Seesaw or Google Classroom. Those tools allow teachers to gather together pertinent information for students that include assignment information, classroom calendars, activities that they want students to engage in. Rather than, say, emailing out to my class an activity that I want them all to do, I can create a classroom in which students can access those materials with a high level of independence, and those are available to them both in and out of the classroom. So if you've had a kid in the district who has utilized Google Classroom, that ability to know what's going on in class really lives in those platforms. So you can see that daily access is there. We also asked how often do students in your classroom use technology to access the internet for research? And there is a varying degree to which they do that across K-12. One of the areas I spoke to in instruction was supporting the integration of educational technology to foster collaboration on projects or on activities in the classroom. And this is the response of our K-12 educators. And then how often do students in the classroom use technology to produce products of their own design? In asking these questions, what we're really trying to get at is there's a lot of variability in these numbers because there's a lot of variability day to day in what happens in the classroom and the tool they choose to use. I may go weeks with never having, delivering content, previewing content, reviewing content, and then as we've learned, we might engage in creating a product that integrates a technology tool like Book Creator or a WeVideo. And I may spend more time in my classroom using that technology and less time using the integrated tech while I'm delivering content, for example. So there's a lot of variability. One of the questions we asked was to choose the statement that best describes the use of electronic searching in your teaching. One of the things that we really try to foster is an understanding that the educational technology that we're integrating requires the explicit teaching of skills in order for students to use them appropriately and effectively. And I always think of electronic searches as a really great example of how things can go really wrong and really right if you have the right skills. And so you'll see that many of our educators say, I provide instruction on search engines and how to evaluate sources, which is an essential skill for our students to learn to be active citizens and ready for their careers. And so I would actually like to see that green increase, right? Like I introduce advanced searching techniques, including the use of specific databases. Those are really more in line with those next step pathways for students. But many people don't ask their kids to search at all online because what they're doing are they're providing direct access to safe databases. So for example, it's very rare for a K2 educator or even I think a K5 educator to ask their student to just search the internet because that's not an effective or an appropriate practice. But they may directly provide a link to say Pebble Go or the Encyclopedia Britannica through Google Classroom and say, within this tool, let's go search. And so that is more of a walled garden in terms of the student access and the use of the tool. And that quality and appropriate integration of the technology is really important. We also were curious about what are the factors that educators consider when they decide to integrate a tool. What are the things that they consider relevant in their decision to integrate technology? And state, national, local technology standards rank fairly low, as does observing colleagues. You'll see that motivating and engaging learners is a really important area for many educators, as well as using scientifically based research that suggests a particular technology application improves student learning. So we really want to focus on the intentionality of the use and look for technology that provides specific outcomes. You'll also see that another really relevant piece is creating a more learner-centered classroom where students are able to explore their own questions and build their own knowledge. We also asked them to describe what their expectation for student use for technology to complete work at home is, and many of the educators said that they do not expect their students. So remember that this represents K-12, and so that's a real variety, and I think that makes sense when we consider that a little less than 50% of the survey participants were at the K-5 level. That 47% saying that they're not expected makes sense. Only 7.9% said that they expected to use technology nightly. One of the things I wanted to share with you is the PISA focus study on managing screen time. This was a study that I wanted to share as a potential resource for you. PISA is the Program for International Student Assessment. Similar to how the NAEP provides the nation report card for how students are doing on reading and math across the nation, PISA measures reading, math, and science across the world. So when you hear somebody say, oh, Finland has the best schools in the country, has the best education in the country, what they're often pointing to are the results of the PISA assessments, which are talked about internationally. The PISA program represents 690,000 students. That's how many students assessed across the globe each time it's administered, and it represents 81 countries, including the United States. And one of the interesting things they do is they look at the mean outcomes of their assessments, and they also ask the students questions about the practices they engage in the classroom and at home. And this assessment is taken by 15-year-olds, so the equivalent of high school freshmen typically here in the United States. And the purpose of this study, which was published in 2024, was to explore why students rely on devices and how their digital device use relates to their mathematics performance, sense of belonging at school, and how much they become distracted. And one of the really interesting things they found based on their 2022 assessment results and the questions they asked these 690,000 students was, what is the correlation between educational technology used for learning in school and when kids are allowed to just use it for leisure? And so that's really a measure of the quality of the use of educational technology in the classroom. And they found that students who spend 1 to 5 hours each day per day on digital devices for learning at school achieve 20 points higher in mathematics than those who spend no time on such devices. And I found that that was really interesting. And you can see from their chart that there is a sharp decline at about 5 hours. They also spoke to the sense of belonging at school, and they found a similar result, that those who spent a moderate amount of time using devices for learning at school, right, with a specific purpose, indicated that they had a stronger sense of belonging while at school. They went on to say that these findings are in line with what's called the Goldilocks hypothesis, so not too little and not too much. And it really emphasizes that the quality of the application is as important as the measurement of screen time. And I think, when we consider the tech approval process and the ways in which we engage in professional development, that's something that we really take to heart here in Scarborough. I also put in here, and I won't read all of this, but I'll be sure that the slides are shared with you. Our educators spoke directly to what they felt regarding the use of technology in the classrooms. And just that first line alone, I think, really speaks to our purpose here in Scarborough. They say, technology in my classroom is used with purpose and intentionality as a genuine tool for learning rather than a substitute for it. And I really think that that is kind of the heart for the work that we try to promote forward. If we can do it on paper and pencil, we should begin there. But if there's an opportunity to integrate technology that provides greater access, greater inclusion, greater accessibility for process and product, if it allows us to transform the ways children interact with the world or show evidence of their learning, we should explore the outcomes of that product. Near the end there, they talk about, I'm just going to point you down to here, at the district level, the shared commitment to purposeful technology use helps ensure that students across classrooms are building consistent transferable skills, not just consuming content, but are engaging with it meaningfully. And I think that really resonated for me because it spoke to the connection we have in the intentional work we do to support educators and the ways in which they see technology actually being integrated into the classroom. And then a high school educator put it a little more simply by saying that technology provides an excellent supplement to my instruction, providing students various pathways to access information and display their learning including collaboratively with their peers and regularly extending learning beyond class time. So again, it speaks to that really intentional and specific use with the recognition for the potential for collaboration. But like you, and wanting to build a vision for the next steps for educational technology integration, there are definitely opportunities for continuous improvement. This is a really large and robust conversation to have, and to just spend 1 hour, 45 minutes when the technology is already failing us in this area is truly not enough. And so just our initial thoughts on it led to several bullet points. Utilizing a technology integration framework to better inform classroom use. There are many frameworks out there to explore that could help us guide us further in our decision-making processes. I'm really excited that next year we'll engage in a science, technology, and STEM curriculum review, which will include looking at digital citizenship education, technology education, and the educational technology integration that we support. I would love to see us formalize a scope and sequence of appropriate grade level skills and knowledge in those areas. We want to continue to offer professional development aligned to the mission and practices of Scarborough. Our job is to prepare students for their next steps in their career, and the purposeful of integration of technology should be a part of that. And then continuing to engage staff in feedback opportunities to inform the professional development they need so that they are integrating technology appropriately and with full support. Our library and media specialists have been working on standards for library media that include media literacy and research skills. Those are directly related to the integration of research practices, online searches, databases, and elements around those educational technology pieces. Our team would love to see us examine the need and use of school devices for learning in out-of-school hours by grade level to determine appropriate hours for access, and to increase school and home connections by providing continued opportunities to engage families in the use of educational technology in the home. And you spoke to the forum, which isn't about educational technology, but maybe a great first step in terms of increasing the connection between home and school and technology in general. That's our last slide. I tried to be mindful of the only 1 hour.
Thank you.
We
Yes.
have.
Yeah, and to your point, this is we only have an hour tonight, but this is a longer term process for sure. Okay, so are there any questions?
Yeah, I do have some questions. So I did do some deep diving into the materials, the back of materials that we got, and all these longitudinal studies have said, more screen time, less quality learning. And so one of my I was hoping to have more of a conversation a little bit, and I appreciate how thoughtfully Scarborough is going about trying to integrate the ed tech and making sure it's used purposefully, and that it is done in a way that students are engaging with each other. But I'm wondering if you're asking some do we actually need it? Because if you look at all these longitudinal studies, do we just want ed tech for ed tech's sake? If it's some, if we can say, is it effective, is it safe, is it legal, before we even introduce it? And I know you brought up the PISA, but this PISA study here, this data shows unequivocally math, reading, science, more screen time over time at what, is just, it doesn't show what you showed on the screen. So I'm just saying, can we think, sort of a step before adoption of any educational technology, are we thinking about what its real purpose and what is it delivering, and in fact, do we want to maybe make sure that we are promoting more human interaction and more, because that all the studies are showing that is actually more effective in terms of learning. You know, a lot of these technologies promote distraction, promote multitasking, so that is in fact something that it's a barrier to effective learning. So we just wanted to sort of just put that out there, so.
Thank
you.
When Jen was talking about the applications and the vetting process, and we've heard that a few times, there's a sort of rigorous process. Does the same process exist for websites? I mean, I can't, I mean,
You mean like when a teacher wants to access a website?
yeah.
I mean, internet access through the school devices.
Yeah, through the devices, like, you know, there's all kinds of web apps now. A lot of things have actually moved away from like things you have to download. I don't know what the differentiation is.
Are you talking about the difference between whitelisting and blacklisting sites?
No, I think you just mean like
We're going through and
web-based
saying,
versus
this is a
versus
site
a
that's
download.
approved and this is not.
Yeah, well, like, obviously you can't go out there and like disallow every, I mean, you'd be, it's impossible to disallow every website outside of filters. But like, if a staff member wants to use some sort of like game website, you know, for you know, math or reading, I don't know, whatever they want to use, do they have to get permission for those kinds of things? It's an application, but it's a web app versus like an actual application that you download or purchase.
Yeah, any application that they use, they need to go through the tech request process.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's something that's loaded directly to their individual devices. It doesn't matter if it's something that's, you know, pushed out via a Google add-on. It doesn't matter if it's an online tool or resource. We force them through the same tech request process regardless.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Another question I had is there, you know, is there really before 6th grade, do you even want children having, you know, one-on-one devices that they take home? And do we want to limit to classroom use? You know, so because again, you want to promote social interaction, group work.
And you're talking
Teacher
about
learning.
out of school time?
No, in school. I mean, basically, we have, when do children begin getting, you know, one-on-one devices?
They have one-to-one devices starting in kindergarten, and there's a real variety of use between the grade levels, right? And so you'll see significantly less use at K2 than you'll see at 3-5 versus 6-8 versus 9-12.
Right.
Because the focus is on the quality of the apps and the appropriateness of the use by grade level. When a kindergartner walks in the door, we want them to be able to line up and follow directions and sit on the rug and answer questions and wash their hands and interact at recess appropriately, and none of that involves technology, right? But when I get into, say, 8th grade and I'm exploring the library database to do a research project that requires an essay, I'm going to utilize those computers very differently. And so I think like that's a question that, you know, we can explore. What is the appropriate use and what does that currently look like and what do we want that to look like, and is it out of sync? Because I don't know that it is one way or the other without involving, in particular, educators at the table who are instructing daily.
Yeah, we need to involve educators.
Yeah.
But there may also be families that want to opt out of that technology and don't want their children using digital devices, you know, before a certain age. So,
And that they can do right now, but I think to the larger question, which is what we're really trying to solve for, and this is how this conversation started, if you're under 6th grade, do you need to take your computers home at all?
Yeah.
And if we're looking at a graph that shows us 47% aren't expecting, there's no expectations of homework, digital homework, what they don't, in my mind, need to go home. I guess I kind of look at the carts is almost like a computer lab, and so can't they just stay there for the night,
Yeah.
right? That's like how this
Yeah.
conversation started.
I just think
I know
as,
yours
as
is,
the only
that's different.
parent.
Yeah,
child-
yours is different.
Oh, yeah,
Your,
no,
your
it's-
thought is
it's an
different.
actual phase
With
level.
obviously the caveat for accessibility and.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, like my child's IEP, you have no input in, and that is a completely separate conversation, and we can have that conversation. I have a child with IEP who uses electronic devices. Sorry, Linda doesn't have the context to that comment. No, for my children, I'm thinking about my children in classes. They don't bring their devices home. So like, I've never seen my daughter brought her device home one time as part of the Key Club to do a project for research. And she had special permission to do it. So I don't believe that I've seen children at that phase level, and she's in 4th grade now, bring their devices home on a regular basis, with the exception of, I know a neighbor who does bring their device home with special permission for a very specific purpose that's related to education that I'm not talking about other kids. But like, so I think on a case-by-case basis, you are seeing that. There are not classes of children at that phase level being sent home with computers. And that shouldn't, I mean, I think, it's not appropriate, but it's not happening. So I think before we have a conversation about what shouldn't happen or should happen, we should establish what is going on.
I
So
think
what is
yes.
actually happening?
Yes, 100.
And then
That's
what
actually,
changes are appropriate?
yes,
So
that's where
And-
my mind
yeah.
is as well. I think we need to understand a little bit more, because I think we're, like, this is a good first step, but then I think the second step is what's actually happening in the classrooms. And what, it, not because I want to be very clear, I don't, at least I should only speak for myself. I'm not in any way implying that any teacher is nefariously using equipment.
Yeah.
Right? But I do think, through my own personal experience with my kids, through what I have witnessed in the way of using devices, I do think that there is a very real danger of distraction. The biggest one I can call to mind is my child trying to do math on a computer. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around how he could work out a math problem by looking at a screen, right? And so that was the first time I saw a disconnect between technology and what I'll say old-fashioned pen and paper use, right? And so, but I don't think anybody's using it nefariously. I think everybody goes in with good intentions, and most certainly we have the best educators that really put our kids first, right, and foremost. And I want to be clear on that. But I do think we have to understand what the use is, not to punish anybody or not to say you're doing something wrong, but we have to know where we're starting from to know where we're going.
That's my thing, which is like, I don't have, I understand on an overview of what's going on in the classroom at phase level from today's presentation, and I appreciate that. I have, I'm grounded in the policy discussion because I was there for the policy discussion, right? So like, that's part of this in the back of my head, is that I'm on, part of this is the genesis of this entire conversation I was part of.
Yeah.
And so like, I have a piece of that in my mind, but before we get to what should be happening, let's talk about what is happening and have a clear idea of what's actually going on, so we understand what the experience our students have is. And once we understand what that is going on, instead of dealing with hypothetical or general propositions, screen time overall is bad. Yes, everybody, there's very few people who are gonna fight on that. Like, screen time overall is bad. Granted, 5-year-olds should not be doing math on computers. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna lose a lot of people with some of these really general propositions.
Yeah.
But before we start making policy decisions and start setting policy decisions, let's figure out what is actually happening.
Yep.
And then what changes should be made, if any. And again, not assuming
Yeah,
it should
because
be.
it could be that.
What direction or shift is warranted?
I can speak to some of what you've all raised so far in terms of, what I see as principal of Pleasant Hill when I walk into classrooms at the K2 level is more often than not children not on computers than they are on computers. When we talk about students at the kindergarten level right on up having one-to-one access, they don't have their hands-on access at K2. That's very much closely monitored by classroom teachers. So if a child is going to use a computer, it's not, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, can I use my computer? At the K2 level, it's very planful. It's right now during math class or during reading time, after we have already had whole group, small group interaction with the teacher. There may be a very specific purpose for which a computer program is used. It's a tool, it's not a substitute for quality teaching. It's a specific tool that's used to differentiate. Some of the programs that Katie mentioned or were bullet pointed in her slides are things that offer differentiation right on the fly. So how a child answers a question. One example of this would be the iReady My Path. That's used in classrooms. So the way a student answers questions gives the platform information about them as a learner, which then targets the instruction and the questioning that a child gets right in the moment. And that's of value. And that's why a tool like that is used. But it's not a supplement for quality education. And I really trust in our educators to make really careful professional decisions about when they use it, why they use it, and that's why those questions are part of our tech request process.
So is the return on investment even there if you're gonna have a K2?
We can't, our workshops are not back and forth with the audience. So if you give us just a couple minutes, we're gonna transfer over to the regular meeting and you can give public comment during the general public.
It loses its own if you do that, but I understand the rules, but it seems very one-sided in those conversations.
Can I ask more questions?
Yeah.
So in K through 3, are devices for the normal proposition, are devices leaving the building?
In K through 2,
Yeah, K through
Pleasant
2,
Hill,
K
not ever,
through 2. Never.
never.
Okay. And so they're stored on a cart during the day.
Yes, they're stored on a cart. They're brought out for, 20 minutes at a time or so, give or take, right? During the course of a day for specific educational purposes.
And I'm assuming curriculum has a curriculum has a role to play in determining what tools are used and when they're used or how often they're used. So like how often a student might be on a screen, which probably varies even among K through 2, second grade. Like in that classroom, a second grader might have more time than a kindergartner. Is that like a curriculum decision that's made like by phase level? Like how does the classroom decide? When I send my kid into that classroom, how do I know how much time they're going to be spending on a screen for whatever educational purpose, as opposed to, I'm going to call traditional learning because I'm old and it was the way I learned. So like in a traditional model, pen and paper, books, real things, blocks, I don't know. Do you have a sense of sort of how is that decision made? Is it teacher by teacher? Is it like, is there more organization? How are those decisions made? I know we're going over time.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions. I will ask some questions.
Maybe the best, did you have something you want to say?
No.
Maybe what I'm first hearing is that it sounds like everybody here would like to understand specifically what's happening in Scarborough better. So maybe that's our next step, right? And then while we're working on, I don't know how long that takes to really, I have no idea what we're asking of you, and I presume it's probably quite a bit. But as we are looking at that, what Scarborough is actually doing, maybe that's where you could send over your questions to Diane and to Katie so that she can, as they're working through what this looks like. And then for I just want to kind of set some expectations for us, for the community. When we worked through the cell phone policy, it took us 8 months. And that was a policy that was already written that we were looking through and making adjustments to. This is going to be a very long process. This is like, maybe it's even step A, 1A. I don't know, but this is not like the start and the end. This is
Starting the discussion.
a starting point. And so there's a lot still to be discussed. And so I think now it sounds to me like as we think through and ask Katie and Diane to really look at specifically what Scarborough is doing, it sounds like we keep it here at the full board level and maybe we hold another workshop and hear that before we delegate this to policy, because I feel like you still have questions.
Right.
I think you still have questions. So maybe we leave it at the full board level before we delegate it back down.
I suggest at the full board level as well, that we have more clarity in what it is we're doing. Because I was here
Yeah.
to learn about educational technology, and I got to that, and thank you very much for the effort put into the slides. I found that very helpful and sort of educational for me. But I think there's a huge appetite for this information. I think we need to be really transparent about that information, how it's shared out so people can understand what is going on, because that's what I've heard over and over and over again. People don't understand what's going on. I think people know what they like, what they know what they don't like, but they don't actually know what is happening. I mean, we can interrogate our children when they go home from school, but they're not necessarily accurate reporters. That's not necessarily the best model. So I think it would also be helpful for the board to have a discussion at a meeting about what are we doing? What is it that we're doing? Are we trying to adopt another policy? I think it may be part of it, but I don't think that's it. I think it's part of a larger thing.
I would agree.
I think it's a larger thing, yeah. And likely includes a policy of some kind, like,
There's gonna be lots of policies that come out of this.
yeah.
I should say that, I know
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so do you feel like you have direction for, and again, if you tell us maybe how long that will take, we can look at our.
We probably need to meet and give them better direction.
Yeah, like I think if
I
we
was gonna
can,
say, I'm not sure I can speak to any of that until I have a better idea of the questions.
yeah, so if we can gather the
Yeah.
questions and then we'll get them over.
Yeah.
And then we'll
Then
we'll set our next, you can let us know once you see what
Yes.
we're looking at, and then we can set our next.
But I think that we should also need to take some ownership over what are we doing.
Yes.
And like give that direction, what are we doing?
Yeah. I would agree. Okay, I'm going,
Yes, it's all yours
with no
now.
objections, we are going to adjourn at 7:07. I hope you remember that. 7:07.